Good morning and welcome. You're listening live to Heart, a program which aims to help you and to become your loving self. I'm Dr. Mitra Rashidian, licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified sexologist in private practice in beautiful Encino, California.
Beautiful Encino, California. And I'm Dr. Robert Jaffe. I'm also a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified hypnotherapist. And I'm here with Dr. Rashidian to share with you some of what we've learned over many years of study and practice about how to feel more loving and joyful every day of our lives. Is it possible to do in the midst of this corona epidemic, pandemic crisis? The answer, well, stay tuned. We believe that the answer is yes, and we'll talk to you about why that is. We are here to let you know that it doesn't really matter, well, I'm not going to say it doesn't matter, regardless of what's going on around us, we are born into this world with some great qualities, and we can access those qualities anytime we wish. Some of those qualities are, we are open, we are curious, we are sexual, we are trusting, we have the ability to be emotionally available and connected, and we also have the ability to be confident and compassionate. Those are all what we're born into the world with, and we have the ability to access those anytime we wish, regardless of what's going on around us.
Yes, exactly. And then the compassionate that you just mentioned is the key factor here, because having a compassionate perspective is going to help us to overcome many of the uncertainty around us. Some people go through the experience of fear, which is normal, and therefore maintaining that perspective actually help us to free ourselves from the trap of what fear can do for us, which is it's going to freeze our mind, and therefore we're not going to be able to see our creativity, all the skills that we have, and many of the qualities that is part of us as a human being. And therefore today's show is devoted to that compassionate perspective. We are here to help each other to understand what's going on, and then how to overcome it, as a big family in California and anywhere that you're hearing our voices.
Absolutely. So today we are going to talk about what else is there to talk about, right? Everybody is concerned about the coronavirus. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about how we can best deal with it in our everyday lives, and how we can adopt a perspective on it that is beneficial to us as well as to others. So that's what we plan on discussing today.
Right.
We are also open to your comments, your questions, your observations. So please feel free to phone in anytime during this hour.
The phone number that you can reach us live here on the program is area code 951-922-3532. That number again is 951-922-3532.
Absolutely.
So, Dr. Jaffe, we heard a new law last night that people have been, invited to stay home, and many of the businesses that they are not considered essential to remain closed until at least April 19th. And then that may actually go beyond that depending on how the progress is. And I have received a number of calls from family and friends and my clients and everybody that, how they can manage something like this. So the reality is that this is not unexpected. The news was not something that we didn't anticipate that it can happen. And the rule is that safety first. Right. Everything that we do, safety is first. So if this step is helping us to maintain that level of safety that is required, then of course we have to agree with that, right?
Well, of course.
And we have to follow that. friends and family, and especially elderly, they were concerned how they're going to be able to meet the loved ones. I mean, my parents, that they live only 15 minutes away from me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I had talked to them, and I have told them that, we are here, we can talk every day, or, whatever they need, we can arrange for them to receive it. So that was helpful, and I understand that there are many parents just like mine, that they're gonna lose the chance of or the opportunity, or the reality is that grandkids are not going to be available to them to see as they used to, and even their own children. So that's difficult.
Yes,
we understand that, but then again, if needed, as needed, everybody's just a phone call away and a step away, realistically. And in terms of clients, we are not exempt, and we are not part of that law, and therefore we are available in any format that is safe.
We are exempt.
We are exempt. I'm sorry.
We are exempt.
Okay, we are exempt.
You just said the opposite.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry for that. Thank you for recognizing that. So we are, and then we are able to provide help to and the therapy that we used to give to our clients, and we are able. So we're gonna meet all the safety measures in order to be able to provide the best service that we can, as needed, and on a schedule. So nothing basically in terms of therapy per se significantly has changed.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. Right. And we are open. We are, and we're assuming other therapists are doing the same thing. We are open to seeing people. If they come into the office, we're keeping a distance from them, a safe distance. And if they don't want to come into the office, then we offer teletherapy,
and also via phone.
Right.
Right.
So that's what we're doing. But for those of you who aren't therapists, and that's the majority of you, this is an opportunity for you to begin to look at your lives and reevaluate,
right,
and see what's of value to you, and what's and what have you been taking for granted, what have you been overlooking, and to give yourself some time to enjoy this sort of enforced vacation.
Right.
And we're not talking right now, of course, about what to do with the fear, and we're going to be talking about that.
Exactly.
But right now we're talking about if you are safe, if you are at home, if you are able to continue your life at home, if you have enough food and water and you have power, you can actually utilize this time for time of reflection.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly. I mean, this is a big change. Something that life in California, at least I have to say, we're not used to it. Staying indoor and not benefit from or not go out to experience the sun and everything. And today is the first day of spring, so therefore, springtime in California is something that everybody looks forward to. And while it's a bit chilly, of course, so it's not a usual California springtime.
Right.
And realistically, when we look at the what we can lose if we don't follow this requirement, the price that we're going to pay is much higher, and many times is not replaceable. Therefore, complying with the law, complying with the policies, understanding why these rules have been made for us, is really essential. And actually, we need to really appreciate that and be grateful that we have the opportunity to receive all these helps via technology, via everything that gives us clear indication of where we are and how we need to support each other, and so that we all can stay safe. Remember, safety is always rule number one and number one policy, and everything that we do essentially ends up with how we are going to stay safe for ourselves, for our family, for what we do as professionals, Because if we are not safe, we can't do anything for anybody else, and we are no benefit to anybody else, and we don't want to cause any problem for anybody else, right?
Right. So let's say I want to say a little bit about staying indoors, and certainly staying indoors is safe, but we also know that this is a very highly communicable disease,
Right.
and that means that we don't want to be close to other people because it is communicable and it's easy to catch. That said, it's notwithstanding that doesn't mean we can't venture outside the front door.
Right.
So
Right.
my beautiful daughter, who has two 20-month-old daughters and my granddaughters, she went with her husband and they took a bike ride together.
Right.
And tonight I'm going to go and play tennis.
Right.
And I'm not going to be around people, but I'm going to be outdoors and I'm going to be doing things. So I don't think we have to worry about walking outside our house.
But
I think we just have to, as you said, I think we have to be aware that it's communicable, and now they know, of course, that you can be carrying it without symptoms. So that's why they're shutting things down, because they're trying to contain it and make sure as many people as possible don't contract the disease.
Right. And this morning on my way here, I saw a few people jogging, a few people were walking with their dogs. They were individual by themselves, and then I saw some couples also doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So like you said, we don't know who really carries the disease or not. So
Right.
number one, the best is to get tested if you're not sure. And then number two is, if you are not sure whether you can do that in your community, it is best to ask. And, once you ask, then you have a peace of mind about, how to plan for your day and what to do with your time. And, springtime is a good time to start with new things and new decisions, new choices. And I like to say that, today actually is also Persian New Day. So to all the Persians who are listening to our voice, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And as part of the traditions, cleaning up at the beginning of the spring is part of the ritual, right? Therefore, now that you're home and you have more time, maybe you can use this time not only just go through the cleaning of your environment, but also cleaning up about what's in your mind that doesn't let you move forward with your life. What are some of the roadblocks that you have? What are some of the decisions that you're not sure whether you should take them or not, or how to plan for your future? So this is a good time actually for us to do that kind of a reflection and that kind of a mental cleanup, so that you can start your year beautiful. We just got a hint that the commercial is coming up, so why don't we take a break and come back to you.
And before we do, I just want to say that my tennis partner contacted me and he said, are we still on, or are you going to hang low because of the virus? And my response was, and we'll talk about this after the break, my response was, a caution is indicated and wise, but paranoia is unhealthy. And I'll see you tomorrow at the tennis court.
Right.
So we'll talk to you after the break.
Welcome back to Heart to Heart. This is Dr. Mitra Rashidian, along with my business partner and best friend, Dr. Robert Jaffe. We are offering you a program today, Heart to Heart, and we're talking about what's going on in the society right now with the whole corona situation that's going on. We welcome your questions and comments. Please call us 951-922-3532. So, Dr. Robert, we were talking about how fear, can play, a big role here, and actually doesn't allow us to be our very best, authentic, loving, true self.
Yes, and that's where we took the break, because I said that my tennis partner asked me if I was going to play, and I said that caution is wise and indicated, but that paranoia is unhealthy. So what's the difference between being cautious and being paranoid? And paranoia is when we are extremely fearful, and that fear triggers the brain to secrete fear hormones. And what do those fear hormones do to us?
Oh my God, let's talk about it.
Yeah, and it's not a pretty picture when we're living in fear. So first we're going to talk about a little bit about what the brain does and how it affects us when we're in fear, and then we'll talk about some ways for you to combat that, right? Because that's what we think is most important with respect to what's going on now in the world with the coronavirus. So the brain, of course, is wired. There's different parts of the brain, and it's wired to protect us. And so survival is, of course, the most powerful drive that we have.
Right.
And so that, of course, is a big part of the brain. And what part of the brain is that? That's what we call the amygdala.
Yeah.
The amygdala. And the amygdala gives us hormones that secrete when we are in physical danger. And most of us, at least in the United States, most of us are not in physical danger most of the time.
Right.
So the amygdala doesn't really care that we're not in physical danger because it still has a job to do, which is to protect us. And so what it does is it extends its reach into emotionality.
Right. I like to add here something about a visual perspective of where amygdala is actually located in our brain, so that we can see how it can actually control us. It is right at the very bottom center part of our brain.
Yes.
So when it becomes activated, we can see that how it kind of explodes all over the brain, and controls every other functions.
Yes. Yes.
So just want to mention that the location of it is very interesting, so we can see the power of fear, how it can capture everything that we do.
Yes. It sounds a little bit like there's some static in the back. Do you hear that?
I hear it, but as long as we don't hear from Jesse, I think we're okay.
Okay. All right. So so what does the amygdala do exactly? Well, when it senses fear, and I mentioned just a minute ago that it all begins with physical danger, right? So if something is about to attack us, if there's an earthquake, if there's a fire, the amygdala goes into action, and it secretes these chemicals that help us to mobilize ourselves and to move more quickly, and our senses become more alert, and it secretes different chemicals.
Right. So let's introduce some of those chemicals.
So yeah, the first.
And what they do actually.
What do they do? Right.
Yeah.
So the first one is adrenaline, right?
And boy, we have heard about that a lot.
And adrenaline is what we call the fight or flight hormone. So it's produced by our adrenal glands, and when it secretes immediately, like within milliseconds of the time when we feel like we're in physical danger. So what happens then is all of a sudden everything goes on alert. Our heart rate starts moving quicker.
Right.
We start becoming alert, and we scan the environment for danger. Right. The adrenaline moves into our bloodstream and energizes our muscles so that we can fight or we can run.
Right. So that's the immediate reaction that we experience as a result of experiencing fear. Is exactly. That's the external part that we see. Our action, is a result of release of this hormone that suddenly puts us on alert, and therefore our body, our mind, our behavior, everything, responds to that, and we call it reaction.
Exactly. And I'm sure many of you have had the experience when driving.
Right.
Right, where someone pulls in front of you and you narrowly miss them. And and then a moment later you can feel your heart pounding, and maybe even breaking into a cold sweat. That's the adrenaline at work.
Right.
Right.
And then some people actually, they pull aside and they stay in the car because there is a moment to recuperate from that, all that sudden changes in their brain and their body, right?
Correct.
So that, you know, they drink some water. So we want you to know that that doesn't just happen out of nowhere. It's because when we are in a fear place, that hormone, you know, can definitely impact everything we do.
Right. And then along with the adrenaline is another chemical we call norepinephrine, and that is simply a chemical that works with the adrenaline to strengthen us and to focus us.
Right.
So those two chemicals are the most powerful. The role of norepinephrine is to stay awake and to stay focused.
Right.
Right.
Right. So, you know, we need, along with fear, we need to, you know, stay aware too and stay focused.
Correct.
Right? Because if we lose that ability, then who knows how our reactions can take us and what can we do, right?
Correct. And so also what the norepinephrine does is it helps put the energy into certain areas of our body where we might need it the most. So it might take it away from the skin and put it more into the muscles.
Right.
And so those two chemicals are the first, are like their first responder chemicals.
Right.
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 And then if the situation isn't resolved, then our body starts to secrete another chemical which we call cortisol.
Oh my God, the cortisol.
The cortisol.
The big C.
Yeah, and that's a big one. And the cortisol is like the second responder, and the cortisol takes doesn't get secreted immediately. It takes a few moments, a few minutes before it gets secreted, and that of course has the same effect as the other chemicals, but it's more long lasting.
Yeah, cortisol basically, you know, it's kind of helps our physics to survival, because basically it's sort of like a sugar hormone, and then once it is released, because our body automatically is set to take care of us, right? So our defenses are rely on all of these hormones, and therefore when cortisol is produced, you know, it's the aim of it is to soothe the body, right? And along with that, you know, insulin is produces.
Correct.
And then, right, so
Correct.
when these two hormones come together, they, you know, they need to go somewhere ultimately, right?
Yeah. And so what the cortisol does, of course, is it reinforces the adrenaline and the norepinephrine, but it again is a second responder. And so what it does then is it keeps the body from utilizing its energy in other areas other than a fight or flight.
Right.
So it's sort of a constant fight or flight response. And so what it does is it takes the body's energy away from reproductive drive and digestion and physical growth. So let's say your hair isn't going to be growing as fast, but one of the major things that it does is it lowers your immunity.
Yeah.
Immunity. Cortisol lowers immunity. So when we're in a state of constant fear, what we're doing is we're lowering our immunity system,
Right.
and that's exactly the opposite of what we're wanting to do right now with the threat of the coronavirus.
Right. Well, immediately what it does, as soon as it is released, it lowers blood pressure. You know, the heart palpitation and the blood pressure that we experience at the moment of fear. So immediately.
No, it increases blood pressure.
It increases?
Yeah, it increases
I
blood
thought
pressure.
It is maintaining the balance of it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Well, it says it increases. Yeah. Yeah. It says
Okay.
it increases blood pressure and increases the sugar.
Yeah, sugar
which gives you more energy.
Yeah.
Decreases libido.
Yeah.
And can of course produce acne and contribute to obesity.
Absolutely, because all that sugar, we know that for the fact that all that sugar, when it is released and it doesn't have anywhere to go, and along with cortisol, insulin is released, and these two, they don't have any place to go because there is no food that they can, mix with for digestion, and therefore they just convert into fat.
Correct.
And that fat
Correct.
actually somehow it is stored around, our organs, because the body is designed to keep the organs safe.
Mm-hmm.
And then fat is a component of safety in body at times.
Right. Right.
Right.
So I think maybe we've said enough about the physical, because we're not doing a class on physical response.
Right.
But one thing you need to know is that staying in fear of this is going to be very detrimental to your immune system and to your body in a lot of different ways, because everything is being geared to get over an immediate threat. And this threat that we're experiencing right now may go on for weeks or months, and so it's going to hurt your body if you stay in fear.
Exactly. So we're talking about loss of focus, loss of creativity as a result of that, and then possible physical harm if we just allow fear to take over.
Correct.
And so what are some of the ways that at this point we can share about how to overcome fear?
Right. So then we have to engage a new part of the brain if we're going to overcome the fear. Right. And that part of the brain that we need to engage is called the prefrontal cortex.
Exactly.
That's the front part of our brain. That's the part that's capable of reason, logic, and rationality.
Right.
And so what we have to do is we have to move our brain from focusing on fear into focusing on logic, and instead of fear-based, we have to be solution-based.
Right.
Right.
So that's where the compassionate perspective comes in.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
So if we maintain that compassionate perspective by reminding ourselves that yes, it's a temporary situation, and I know, and we're all are going through this, so it's not something that is designed just specifically for one person, and therefore how we can make the best out of a situation that is not really ideal. But again, when we compare ourselves and we look at the whole world, we are actually the very lucky ones that we are able to have this break. We are able to, for people, we are able to be thankful for people who are actually watching over us, and they are giving us experiences. They're giving us alternatives. They are giving us all these options that we can choose from, and also just to make it through this difficult time. And then how our own creativity, how our own way of life can help this process.
Right.
Not just for ourselves, also for the ones who are around us.
So what I want to talk about now is how to move the brain function from the amygdala into the prefrontal cortex.
I think that's very important.
And I think one way of doing it is to think about it. There's a schema of psychology called transactional analysis. Transactional analysis is the adult parent child paradigm. There's a part of our brain that's the adult. There's a part of our brain that's a parent. There's a part of our brain that's a child. So think of it as accessing that part of your brain that is the adult and the parent, and you're going to be reassuring the child part of your brain.
Right.
And you can do this in the same way that you would reassure your own children. And if you have children, you can use this with your children, and you can also use it with yourself to act as a loving, caring parent would act. What kind of messages would you like to give to your child, your actual child? And those are the same kind of messages that you want to give to yourself to help you to be calm and clear and not, quote, freak out, to engage the cortisol and the adrenaline parts of your brain.
Exactly. We just got to know that our commercial break is coming up next. So we are happy to continue with this discussion right after we come back. Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Hello and welcome back, Dr. Mitra and Dr. Robert here at LA Talk. I'm sorry, at Heart to Heart. So we have another program. So
We do have another program. Yeah.
Anyway, we would like to invite you to join us at 951-922-3532, and share with us what are your concerns, what questions you have. And we are happy to help you find your answers and have what helps you to get through this rather unusual and difficult time. We have been talking about how fear can actually control you. So, it's important to know that fear is not a present concept, it's a future concept. So our brain takes us to a place where it hasn't actually happened. So once we are in an unusual situation, it's easy for our brain to just take us to the place of unknown, and therefore we react, and let's see how we can overcome some of that or all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so anxiety is about future. Fear is actually for the moment. And when something is presenting itself, then you're in fear. But anxiety is about future fear.
Right.
And what we're talking about now is how your brain gives you the same response to anxiety as though it's actually happening now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's causing the fear hormones, which we talked about earlier. And then we're talking also about how to overcome that. And we overcome that by accessing our prefrontal cortex and becoming a good parent to ourselves. So what are the messages that you want to give to your children? And let's assume the children are very young. Let's assume the children are under 5.
Right. And they have lots of questions.
They have questions and they don't understand. And so you want to explain it to them in a way that doesn't make them more fearful, right? But isn't also lying to them. You don't want to ever lie to your children. You want to explain it to them, and you want to make it sound not real scary. And that's what you want to do with yourself. You want to explain it to yourself. And in psychology, we have something which we call explanatory style. And explanatory style has to do with the way that we explain things to ourselves, which either causes us to be solution-focused or fear-focused, right?
Right.
And so what we want to be, of course, is solution-focused. And so what are the solutions to when your brain is telling you fear, fear, fear? The sky is falling, right? And so what would you want to say to a young child? One of the things you'd want to say to a young child is, I'm here and I'm going to keep you safe.
Right.
Yeah. Now, how do you say that to yourself? You say it the same way. You say, I'm taking precautions, and I'm keeping myself safe.
Right.
And I'm doing everything I can reasonably do, and I haven't contracted the disease. I'm okay.
And even if some contracted the disease, help is there, so there are high rates of survival among those that they have contracted.
Oh, we're talking certainly well over 90% of the people who contract it are not going to die.
Right.
So, and the chances of contracting it are not. You don't have like 100% chance of contracting it.
Right.
So you have a smaller chance of contracting it and a much smaller chance of dying if you do contract it. And most of us haven't contracted it.
And that's why we have all these safety measures going on, so that we don't contract this disease.
Yeah.
Right.
And if we do, then what?
Right.
Then we still have to give ourselves positive messages. Right.
So we want to say, the more you stay in a stage of fear, the more your body defense drops, and then the more fear controls you, and the more chance to actually contract this virus.
Yeah. So there's a book that came out. I think it was in the 1970s. It was by a physician whose name was Dr. Norman Cousins. Mm-hmm. And he wrote a book called Anatomy of an Illness. And what they had discovered was that illness has a lot to do with lowered immune system. And so he reasoned that if negative thinking could lower your immune system, then positive thinking could raise your immune
Right.
system. And what he did was he had a cancer, and he got all of these comedic films and put himself into a room and just watched the films and kept laughing, and did it for days and weeks and months. And he just kept watching the films, and of course, eating and sleeping and all of that, but laughing, and actually cured himself. And then he wrote that book, Anatomy of an Illness. So I want you guys to really, really think about that. Whatever you can do, what other messages you can give yourself, whatever things you can do to focus on the positive,
Right.
and to create a positive sense of enjoyment in your life. And that's what we were talking about at the very beginning, that this is an opportunity for us to be creative and to use our minds to give ourselves positive messages. What are some of the positive messages?
Right. So,
What do you think? What are
so,
some of the
yeah,
positive messages?
some of the positive messages is that instead of focusing on what we don't have, is be able to identify and recognize our choices.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, what choices do we have now that we have to stay home? Where there are plenty. As a matter of fact, many of these choices are the ones that we always wish we had more time to do them.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Correct.
For example, many businesses, they always say, "Oh, I wish I had time to focus on how I want to develop my business, how I want to, make changes in the structure of my business, or how come up with new plans and new innovative, strategies so that I can better my practice, but my daily function doesn't allow to do that, right? Doesn't allow me time to do that." Or, family members, how do we sit down and kind of go over our budgeting, how we can make our budgeting, a healthy one and a better one, so we can have some money saved for the project that we have for the expansion of the house, for example.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And how we can do, there are so many things that in the previous time, like, we always just wish for extra time, and now we have that extra time, right?
Exactly.
And not only we have that extra time, we have family members that they can actually engage in those activities, so we can do it collaboratively. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is, because of the work functions, and because of most of the time families being apart from each other, they don't really have a time to listen to each other. I mean, this is the, parents go to work and kids go to school, and by the time everybody's home is around 7 o'clock, have dinner and just have a small talk during dinner table, and then everybody goes to their room and then they go to bed. So basically, quality family time is very much limited.
Absolutely.
Right.
And what about if you don't have a family? What about if you're living by yourself? Then I'll just share with you. I live with my sister, but we do different things. We do
Right.
separate things, and so a lot of time I'm at home and I'm by myself, and I love to read, and I love to meditate, and I bought a book on learning yoga. So
Right.
I've been sitting there and learning yoga.
Right.
And
Yeah, I have witnessed how many things you have done to put that together.
Oh,
Yeah,
thanks. Yeah,
right,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I made a little meditation space for myself in my house, and so whatever it is you're interested in, these are things that you can start learning about and doing.
Yeah, this is the time to do it. Many people say, "Oh, I wish I had time to, grow my own produce." But guess what? This is a springtime. This is the perfect time to start doing that.
Right.
Right, learning how to cook, learning how to put as many projects that you have. I mean, right now, I just remember these two, but I hear from people that they wish they had more time to do certain things for themselves. And this is it. This is the time that you can focus on what is it that you wanted to do and you didn't have time for it, how to make these choices within a time limit that we have, about 4 weeks, and then how to plan for it, how to budget for it, and how to implement it.
Exactly. And let's say if money is a problem, then you have time to think about, well, am I doing what I really want to do to make
Right.
money? And maybe I need to do that for right now, but is this really what I want to be doing in a year or 5 years?
Right.
Okay, or 10 years? And if it isn't, then you start thinking about, you can fantasize about what you would like to do. Remember that Albert Einstein said that imagination is more important than anything.
Right.
He said it's more important than knowledge even. And because anything that we can imagine, we can achieve if we decide to.
Right.
Yeah. And so our program is Lose Your Ego, right? And the ego is the part of us that's fear-based. Find yourself, and that the self is the part of us that's spirit-based. And focusing on appreciation and focusing on gratitude are the quickest ways of shifting from ego into spirit.
Right, exactly. So choices versus fear, creativity versus, being paranoid about it, and that compassionate perspective as part of our authentic true self. That's the part that we are actually come to this world with. This is the time that we can focus on that, benefit from it. And some of the people that I know, my clients tell me they wish they had time to look online and see this specific programs that they wanted, or how to choose a university online where they can actually attend to, so that expand their knowledge and expertise as a way to move forward in their profession. So this is the time to do that. You can go online and investigate and read about different options, different universities and different programs in the area of your interest, and then be able to select one that is, that you feel more comfortable with, have an online interview with them. And this is the time that you can actually plan the next phase of your life, I would say.
Yeah, and so the one question that I want you to think about and leave you with is, who is in control of my mind?
Yeah.
Right? Who is it that's in control of my mind? And if the answer is anyone but yourself, then it's a lie.
Yes.
You are in control of your mind. And you have different parts of your mind. We just talked about the two major parts of your mind, the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex. You have the choice of which part of that brain you use. And whatever choice you make will determine the feelings that come up and will determine the quality of your life.
Exactly. So we're here for you. If you have questions that you didn't want to share online, which we of course encourage you to do, because your question can help so many other people who share similar question. And please contact us. You can Google us, you can find us on Psychology Today. We are happy to answer your questions. You can email us. Our contact informations are public, and we are happy to help you during this difficult time in any way that really meets your needs. And just focus on being compassionate to yourself, loving to yourself, loving to those that you think you can help, and just don't allow fear to control you, because like Robert, you said, we are in the control of our life and our mind, and we can't just let external situations take those beautiful qualities away from us, and put them on freeze.
Absolutely. So the last thing that and we only have a couple of minutes left, but the last thing that I want to talk about is what is it that you would actually say to a small child when you're trying to reassure them. Right. And you would say, I'm proud of you. Mm-hmm. And I trust that you have a good head on your shoulders, and that you're going to make good decisions, and I'm here for you.
Right.
And you can say that to yourself. What I have learned, and what I try to help the people that I work with, is to give yourself an actual reward, and say, whenever you've done something, and let's say even caught yourself thinking negative things, and you can't change it because as long as you haven't become aware of it. Once you're aware of it, then you can say, oops, I've been miscreating. Mm-hmm. Because thinking negative things is using your imagination in a negative way.
And then
and as long as I'm miscreating, I'm going to be creating more strife and anxiety for myself. I'm glad I caught myself miscreating, and now I want to shift back into gratitude. And whenever I do that, and I'm not around other people, I smile, I say, "Good job, Robert," and I pat myself, and I kiss myself, and I pat myself on the cheek, and I do it in my mind when I am around other people, and that's a reward. And that's it. And we'll talk more about how to reward yourself in future programs.
Right, and then we are at the end of our program. It was a pleasure to be here another day, and we look forward to seeing you next week. And until then, don't forget, all you need is love.
All you need is love. And I know what I just said, everybody's going to go, that was very corny, and how could I never do that? But try it. You might like it.
Yes.
Okay.
Love, love, love.
Love, love,
Have
love.
a wonderful day and happy spring.
Talk to you soon.